Okay, what we have here is a standard looking shower fixture, otherwise known as, well, actually it's two components to every shower fixture, and this is the body. It's always going to be a brass type body, which is a shower valve. Then you have the insert part, which in the old days used to be washers and seats and stuff like that, but nowadays it's just a cartridge. Some call it a valve, but that's kind of a misnomer. This is a plastic cartridge. What you will see, this is the basic setup of almost every valve. What you will see is you will see the shiny piece around here and the shiny piece here, and then at the end of this screw goes the handle, and then of course you'll see a big scutcheon that goes around, you know, the whole thing to cover up, you know, over the tile and everything. And so what you don't see is these two components which make up every shower valve. This one happens to be a delta, and the reason I'm doing this video is because you know, people don't like to admit their mistakes, and everybody, it seems nowadays, are perfect, and I like to do as perfect job as I can. Unfortunately, I have to admit my mistakes when I make them. So I'm going to tell you what happened to me the other day on a shower renovation that I was doing, a bathroom renovation. Specifically, I was doing a tub to shower conversion, and I had, as I always do, usually the first day or the second day at the most, I'll usually do my plumbing then. It takes me a couple, 2 or 3 hours to do both the drain and the supply, and that's what I did. So 8 days later, I'm basically done with the job, and I have no water coming out of my shower. So that kind of tripped me out because it's never happened before. So I'm going to kind of go through the process of trying to figure out what had happened here. These shower cartridges usually are one cohesive unit, and in this case there are two by virtue of this bottom part here. Now this bottom part just happens to be, it comes apart, well, let me show you something here. This is a rubber gasket that seats up against the back of this valve here. Oh, there it is, it's hiding from me. So this part here is what goes on to that part there. Actually it goes this way. So you have what looks like two little pink O-rings here, and usually there's O-rings, but they're usually in the back of that, and they fit inside there. And in this case, and then usually a couple of springs with the O-rings also. In this case, there are no springs. There are a couple of pink O-rings on the end of this portion of that, which actually comes off. Now, I wasn't too surprised about that. Every manufacturer has their own way of putting these things together, but I had never run into that before, and you know, it didn't really bother me. I went ahead and put it on the way it's supposed to. It's almost a no-brainer type of thing because it only goes on one way, even if you turn it around upside down like this. I'm trying to do it with one hand, but even if you turn around upside down like that, it's still going to work. And it will fit right in. It doesn't snap in too well, but it does fit in there. And so anyway, turning that around doesn't really do too much to it. It'll still go in and seat into the back of that valve. The problem is, with all this stuff going on that I do with shower renovations, this is the least of my worries. Once I sweat the valve in, and I do it on every shower I've done for the last 14-15 years. Once I'm done, I cap off where the shower head is supposed to be. I put a pipe up there and cap that off so that no water will ever come out should somebody try and turn this on, and then I leave it alone, and I don't even touch it until 8 days later, and I'm always getting water. So when I wasn't getting water in this case, as I said, it was tripping me out. So I took it out and I did all the different configurations that you could possibly do on this, turning it upside down and right side up, and trying to figure out what I did wrong, and then I would put it back in, and each time I had to turn off the water to the house and then turn the water back on again just to get this thing out, and then drain off all the excess water that was coming from the units upstairs. And so it was kind of a pain, and I really got my exercise on that, but eventually I took this off, and I started blowing in these holes to try and figure out if there was some type of debris that got caught up inside of here somehow. And come to find out, this is a backflow device. There's actually two of them here, obviously, one for the hot and one for the cold. So being a backflow device, you could blow through here, same as water would be going through there, and it would come out and then into the back of that cartridge, and then it would do its little magic and divert water to where it needed to go. And then if you actually tried to suck in on that, it wouldn't let you, so that was obviously a backflow device. And I had never seen a backflow device on a shower valve before, in a shower cartridge. Now, doesn't mean that they don't have them in other cartridges. They could be built-in backflow devices, but I just had never seen one. This particular model is a Delta, and I don't pay a lot of attention to the fixtures that I put in. I mean, I look at the body basically, because I'm always looking at the difficulty in sweating in the body more so than if it's a Price fixture or Delta or Moen or anything else. Usually it's kind of irrelevant, and I've done quite a few Deltas, but never one like this, not this type of setup. So when I had the issues, I called Delta and I said, well, you know, I'm having a problem with this and I don't know what the solution is, and they ran down a list of different things that they have on a piece of paper and tried to feed me the information that they thought would work. So one of the first things that they asked me was on this part here, let me get that back in there. On this part here was the plastic that protruded outward to the left or the right. And I said, well, it's to the left. And they said, well, then that's correct, because if you see when you turn this valve, when you turn it on, I'm going to have difficulty with one hand, you're turning it to the highest position, in other words, the hottest position possible, and then it stops. So that's really all that is. That plastic thing is a stop. And you can actually adjust the stop. On this particular model, you have to take this little O-ring and you have to pull the O-ring up over where it's seated in, and then you can turn this top part down. So if you can imagine this lever going down further here, so that when you actually turn the whole thing, you'll get more hot water to where it stops at instead of less. Right now it's factory set to kind of lukewarm. So anyway, I said, okay, so for argument's sake, let's say that I had it turned the other way and that the protruding plastic part was to the right. And they said, well, then instead of getting hot water when you ask for it, you're going to get cold water. So in other words, you're just reverse the situation. So that wasn't the issue. And then of course I asked the important question, would that be an issue if I turn that around to a different direction, you know, just flipped it, would that matter? And they said no, because the design is exactly the same. So, you know, just being a backflow device, it wouldn't matter on that part at all. And then as I told you before, the design on that is exactly the same. So, you know, turning it around is only going to get you hot or cold on either side. Anyway, so I'm trying to figure out, well, maybe I have a defective valve. So go back to Home Depot, get a secondary valve, and take out the cartridge from the valve, and I don't touch it. I don't adjust the hot or nothing. All I do is I take the whole cartridge, including that backflow device, and I put it in to the shower fixture that I'd already sweated in, and went to turn on the water, and still nothing. And so now I'm really dumbfounded, and I'm thinking it's possible that the whole shipment of Delta faucets to that Home Depot must be defective. So I called Delta, and they were actually very nice. In fact, the first time I called them, they were willing to send me the whole setup for free. And I declined. I said, let me go back to Home Depot and get a secondary one and see if that works. And after the second one failed, I said, well, that Home Depot definitely has some defective products, so let me go through Delta. And I called them again. I said, go ahead and send me the whole setup again. And of course that was overnighted, but it did take a couple of days. But the long story short is this. After they sent it to me and I went back to the customer's house and turned off the water to the whole house, and I took the component out, took that component out, I had a couple of days to think about the situation. And there was no way that water could not get to my shower. If I had water, which I did, by the way, I had water going in, left side, right side. I always cap off the bottom because that's where the tub spout would go, and then, you know, the top was on there. And so I tried to decipher, if I have water coming through my cold and my hot side, why am I not getting water through the shower? Well, the common denominator would be, the shower head, and of course, I take the shower head off, and I'm good there. But when I got back with the Delta product, straight from Delta, as I said, I had a couple days to think about it, and so I get back to the house, I take out the cartridge, and I started inspecting the new valve. In fact, this is the one I inspected, and I started looking at how the water was going in. So it's going in to the cold side, it's going into the hot side, and I'm seeing the hole there for the tub. And then I looked up. Now understand, this is literally attached to inside of the shower. So right now I'm just physically looking as I am now at this free space, and then I looked and I'm like, wow, there's no hole that goes up to the shower head. Man, did I mess up? Did I have this thing upside down? Was this specifically only a shower valve? Is that the way it should have gone? And then I looked at the back and I'm going, nope, because there's an up button, there it is, or an up sign right there, and it shows you the direction. So if you follow that and there's still no hole, what's going on? Well, I looked in the top and there is a tiny little hole. That's actually smaller than a racer head. So I looked at that hole for the supply and that hole for the supply, and they're quite big. And I looked down the tub, and there's actually two of them, and that one's quite big, but that one's small, just like that one is small. And so that hole goes all the way down the body until it reaches down to the tub. So the diverter that you would normally have on a tub would allow the water to go either direction. However, that hole being that small the way it is, and it's really hard to tell in the video, but trust me on this, this is a very, very small hole. Like I said, it's smaller than a racer head. And then it dawned on me, my mistake. When I sweat a valve on any shower, I sweat it in just like this. In other words, I'll cut on my pipe, usually because I'm doing tub to shower conversions. The fixture is way down here, and it's there because that's where the tub is at. But I'm bumping it up to about about waist level, and so in this case, I have already cut out my copper lines and everything, and cut new copper and put my elbows in and all that stuff, and sanded and put my flux on the copper pipe and all that stuff. And I always cap off the bottom here with a little dip tube, and then eventually, I get my torch out and I start doing my soldering once my pipes are all set. And as I said, it dawned on me, because that hole was so small, I know what happened. The solder that actually got sucked in through here went down to the bottom and clogged up that tiny little hole really quick. And that was actually the problem. So what I did, by the solution was, because understand, I would have had to tear out the whole wall if I had to change out the valve, is I got my torch and I heated up right around there where the hole would be, and not very long either, maybe about 30 or 40 seconds or so. And then I went to the top of where the shower head used to be, and I just kind of like, blew right there. And when I blew, whatever solder was down there got pushed down. And of course it got pushed down where? Down here to the dip tube. Which is one of the reasons I like dip tubes, because they are there specifically to catch any debris or anything like that that comes into the valve. And in this particular case, it was a deliberate debris that ended up down there. Usually these have caps that go on there. So, in other words, don't make that mistake, whatever you do. As I said, normally, let me do my little setup here. So you have, for example, you would have a setup very similar to this. Okay, so in essence, this would be the dip tube, and of course it'd be shorter than that, probably about 3 or 4 inches, and then I just cap it off with one of the copper caps. Say that 3 times fast. I have a right side supply for the cold, I have a left side supply for the hot. It elbows down off of here, off of both sides, and then you have the long tube which goes up to the shower head. So to prevent that from ever happening, from now on I'm going to start looking in the top of there and looking at the size of the hole. As I said, I've never ever had this happen before, but based on that one experience and my sheer embarrassment at having screwed up the job, or at least that part of the job, I am now going to sweat my pipe, or at least this one anyway, the way it is now, laying down. No more will I sweat it standing up, because obviously got enough solder into the top of there. So just an FYI for some of the DIYers out there, or maybe some of the other shower guys that build showers, and possibly any plumbers out there. And as arrogant as plumbers can be, there's always something to learn, and I'm telling you right now, that's a mistake you don't want to make, because when you have all the wallboard up and all the tile up and everything and the job is done, and you call for water and no water comes out, that's the most embarrassing thing you can have happen. And I hope it never happens again to me. So, just a heads up.